Hey guys, a quick follow-up video to my Hunt Down the Freeman video. But at first, a little clarification. The Boris character in the video is not Boris from Life of Boris. Some people seem to have been confusing us. We maybe sound a little similar though. By the way, it's a fun channel actually. I've tried out the recipe for chebureki. Tasty stuff. And his review of Poland is pretty hilarious. Go check him out maybe. So now that we got that out of the way, the German guy can take over again and talk about Prospekt. Prospekt. I called it the first failed Half-Life game. Yes, I am perfectly aware that Prospekt and Hunt Down the Freeman, or Refund, are not official Half-Life games and are not canon. However, they are marketed as Half-Life games and sold on Valve's platform, so thereby a certain vibe of approval is coming from Valve. Technically, the first failed Half-Life game is of course Hostile Takeover, a Half-Life project that we have talked about on this channel a few years ago. If you want to talk about failures in general, well, there are failed portations, like an early Macintosh portation that was never released. That would be pretty much the first Half-Life failure even before Hostile Takeover. But let's get on with today's content. Some people have asked me to take a look at Prospekt again and report on all the changes. The developer promised to upgrade the game and add more content. In some regards, he delivered. The lighting in the game has improved massively, although some areas are incredibly dark now and the higher contrast and color saturation set the game apart from the art style of the originals. Admittedly, I've been very harsh on the game, and comparing it to Hunt Down the Freeman, it's far superior. Not only on the gameplay level, but also on the design end. The majority of levels still look like the very blocky and simplistic release version that in some places looks reminiscent of Gold Source level architecture and detailing, meaning an over-reliance on brushwork and the rare use of displacements. Something that I had to learn myself when switching from Gold Source to Source. Levels that did get an upgrade, however few they may be, do look better. They do not reach the standard that a Black Mesa Source has set, but they are detailed to a level that they could be a part of Half-Life 2 Episode 2. Some levels were not only improved, but also expanded in size. Most notably, this area has gotten a massive overhaul. A puzzle was added that relies on using physics objects to make a makeshift bridge. Something that can be a bit tricky, but is actually a welcome diversion from the regular shooter corridors. Shortly after the bridge puzzle, you enter a room in which the Combine have set up a trap for you, flooding the room with hunters. If the game would have been released with this level of detailing and gameplay diversity applied constantly throughout the game would have been received a lot better by the community and the critics as well. Sadly, the improvements are rare and far between. 2 years later, Adrian Shepard is still equipped with a crowbar, and the HEV suit, or in his case rather the PCV, still appears out of nowhere when picking up the first weapon. Reading the developer's blog on the game's community page, he is working on a few additions that do look promising, but have not been implemented yet. So I would say most of my criticism that I had 2 years ago still apply. Although, looking at Hunt Down the Freeman in comparison, I would have been more lenient with Prospekt. Prospekt's price tag is by far more reasonable, however, in the light of what other mods have delivered for free, I still feel uncomfortable about it. When looking at mods like Poke 646 or the recent Half-Life Caged, I must say that these mods on the old Half-Life 1 engine provided an equal if not superior experience and are free. And in the case of the latter mod, you have the option to throw a few bucks into the head as a thank you. I like that option. Looking over again at Hunt Down the Freeman, the overpriced asset flip that wants to charge more than any reasonable person would think it's worth, they said that they would release the actual game on March 5th. The actual game that is so much better, the version that they accidentally did not release. Asked what improvements that would be, they said improved loading times and reduced size, a tutorial level and engine updates. Congratulations, that will fix the game, of course, absolutely. That will improve the game to a level that everyone will say, oh yeah, that's a great game. If they would actually improve the game to what Prospekt is, then I would be really surprised. And talking about a remake of Hunt Down the Freeman, a friend of mine noted that Nikolai Aulov is working on a remake, I guess. That's the guy who made the Counter-Strike 1.6 Source portation. And he usually starts a lot of projects and they're kind of interesting in an awkward, funny way. I'm definitely keeping an eye on his creation. And as for Prospekt, if the big update comes out, I'll give it a look. Until then, have a nice day and as always, goodbye and guten Tag. P.S. Seeing all the people who are involved in Hunt Down the Freeman and the voice acting for it and the development, seeing them distancing themselves from it is kind of funny.